So the girl I've been talking to for the last few months ended things just 2 weeks ago. So I was slightly hesitant about posting this video because this is probably the most personal or vulnerable video that I've ever made, and plus it's not the type of content that you subscribe for. If you've seen some of my videos in the past, it's not that I haven't been personal or vulnerable. I talk about my failures and shortcomings, but this is probably gonna be on a different level and a different side that I usually do not talk about. The thing is, in social media, we typically see the positives, and I think it's good to see the negatives as well, as that's more reflective of reality. So here it is. So I'll kind of give a bit of background so you can see how I got to where I am. And I'm sure along the story, you guys are probably going to say, that's the wrong move. I shouldn't have continued, but I did anyways. Yeah, we'll get to that. But basically, those of you who have been following along know that I haven't been dating. I wasn't dating for an entire year as I was focused on my full-time job, school, and a part-time internship. And I was just too busy. I went on maybe a handful of dates during that period, but I realized very quickly that I was not capable of balancing all those things at once. So pretty much I stopped dating that entire year. And I graduated in May, which freed up a lot of time. And I jumped back into the dating game. And it was very refreshing, it was very different than the types of things I typically do because I'm usually just such a workaholic. And during that time, it was fun getting to know new people, meet them, listen to their stories and their experiences. I'm just a curious individual, so I really enjoyed that time. So dating was fun. And one of those things I did in the pandemic was just engage in a lot of conversations with individuals. And in particular, there was a Facebook group that I joined where the conversations were amazing. And that group is called Subtle Asian Leftovers. The folks in there were usually more in their mid to late 20s, early 30s. And it was more conversations about life. And so it was deeper conversations. Now, in engaging in those conversations, one time I came across a post where someone asked about the worst type of question you get on dating apps. And I remember scrolling through the responses, and one of them in particular caught my eye. And it was this girl who responded that she did not like when people asked, "What do you do for fun?" And in reading that, I kind of got triggered because that's the type of question that I would ask. And I didn't understand or see why that is such a bad question because, it's an open-ended question, assuming you're just getting to know each other. It's an open-ended question. Like, what's wrong with that, right? But I responded and I said just that. And she said that it was too vague or too generic, something like that. And so I was like, okay. I didn't really agree with it, but then I asked, what would be a better question? And she said a better question would be something like, what did you do over the weekend? Because it was more targeted, I guess, which I still didn't agree with. I was still triggered at the time. And I think this occurred over like a period of 2 days where I was going back and forth. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to argue over it. And I said something like, I'll let you know how it goes. I'll actually try it out myself. I actually didn't try it out, but a couple days later, I think she liked my response. It was like a delayed response or something. And I went back to that post. And for whatever reason, I clicked on her profile and I was like, hey, this girl's kind of cute. So I decided to send her a message. And at that time, I think it was a Monday. So the weekend had just passed. So when I sent her a message, I said, how was your weekend? And so if you don't already know, this is the girl that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And that's how I met her. The thing is, when I first reached out to her, there was no romantic intentions necessarily. I just thought she was cute and figured it'd be fun to spark a conversation. But the idea wasn't very foreign either, as we exchanged a few messages, and I think within like a week or two, we jumped on a Zoom call. And she was definitely cute. I thought she was very interesting, and it was enjoyable to interact with her. And during this time, I had started another YouTube channel, and I was planning to do this virtual blind date where I paired two individuals together and had them answer these 36 questions that was in that New York Times article where two strangers, supposedly when you ask these questions, they fall in love. And I told her about this idea and this video. I was like, hey, why don't we do this? And surprisingly, she was down for it. And for the next few weeks, every Saturday, we jumped on a Zoom call for 2 to 3 hours going through some of these questions. I mean, it wasn't just about the questions. We talked about other things as well. But it was definitely a very interesting experience getting to know a complete stranger. You know, I hardly knew anything about her. But the thing is, she wasn't very open about the questions either. I don't actually think she liked the questions. But either way, it was a fun experience. Over the next maybe 1 to 2 months, we exchanged messages, got to know each other. And I just thought that she was a very interesting person, enjoyed the conversations. And we shared a lot of stories about dating, about travels, about our interests. And it was good. And over the next few weeks to months, there was definitely a lot of enjoyable moments that we shared. We exchanged a lot of different stories, got to know each other better. And she kept my interest. There was just something about her that was unique. You know, keep in mind during this time I was dating as well. So I was actually engaging in conversations with the intent to date with other girls. But no girl that I met or was talking to really captured my attention like she did. Again, there was no romantic intentions necessarily because I still didn't know much about her. And I think that was part of what made it so refreshing because I didn't meet her on a dating app. I didn't know how old she was. I didn't know where she lived. I didn't know her relationship status. And I think it was the novelty of that made it more interesting. As time went on, I think I grew to become interested in her, maybe in like the first 1 or 2 months. And I think it's important that once you're interested in someone, you let them know. And there's definitely been a couple of occasions where I let her know and I said things like, hey, I'm actually interested in you. I don't know if she really took it directly, but basically I made a couple of those comments at her throughout that time period. And every single time I made that comment, she was basically like, hey, I haven't really been single for a long time. She's enjoying her time being single. She doesn't really want to date. She actually doesn't date right now. She hasn't had dating apps, I think she said, in years. And she was happy where she was. She just thought that she enjoyed being single more and she didn't want anything else. So I think this is maybe like 2 or 3 months in, and there was mixed signals at the time because you think that someone might be interested in you because they're spending more time with you. And, you know, we were spending more and more time together, getting to know each other. But long story short, basically every single time I vocalized my interest in her, she rebutted with how she does not want to date, she does not plan on dating, and she is not interested. So I think at the 3-month mark, I finally decided that maybe this is a point where I should stop pursuing. You know, this girl is obviously not interested in anything committed right now, nothing serious, and maybe I should just stop. The thing is with me, I always think that before giving up on someone, because it's been 3 months at this point, where I'm like, it would be nice to see if there really is something there. So I wanted to meet her in person. You know, I floated the idea of actually meeting her, and she said she was down. So at the time it was, I think, September, and I wasn't comfortable flying to see her. So I actually drove. I drove 6.5 hours to go and see this girl. It was cool. We met up for a couple days. She took me around town, showed me a lot of different things, introduced me to some of her friends. And it was a good time. It was a very good experience that I had with her. And I think from that trip, I realized that there is some interest there. Granted, before going on the trip, I actually had ruled her out as a potential long-term partner because we had talked briefly about our views on kids, and they were on opposite ends of the spectrum. But I figured going on the trip, maybe things would change. Maybe we can talk more about it, and maybe it's a different feeling once we're actually interacting in person. But long story short with that, went on the trip, found out that I'm even more interested in her. And the idea of having differing thoughts on kids became less of a concern. It was somewhat diminished in a way. That's emotions, right? And after that trip, things didn't go that well either. I had a couple conversations with her about how I think there might be something there. And, maybe the words didn't come out right. It just wasn't that great. But we ended up surprisingly planning a trip. It wasn't just me and her. Her old roommate and her cousin went with us too. But we went on a trip together and we planned a trip. And it was that trip where I actually caught very strong feelings for her. But surprisingly, before going on the trip, I was doing what I typically do. I'm like continually show my interest towards her by making flirtatious comments. And she'd always reject them. And the very night before the trip, I remember specifically asking her, I was like, hey, we're going on this trip and I just want to make it clear, like, are you absolutely not interested? Like, do you want to just keep this platonic? And she was like, yes. And that kind of sucked at the time. And I even thought about, canceling this entire trip. Like, what am I doing? I'm flying out to this place to go hang out with this girl that has no interest in me. And against my better judgment, I feel like I did anyways. But I also thought, I already planned this out. I scheduled the PTO. I booked my plane ticket. I did the research. Let me just do this for myself. Just think about it as traveling with a friend and enjoying this experience for myself. And so that's what I did. I went on the trip, kept it completely platonic, and that was it. And I was thinking maybe after the trip, that was what it was going to be, and I was just going to stop. But, on that trip, I caught really pretty hard feelings. And when I think back to it, there was definitely a couple moments, but one in particular was, we were at a restaurant and we were eating and having general conversation, and I just felt bliss, and it felt right. But yeah, it still, during that trip, I actually did make a couple comments towards her, which she immediately refuted and rejected. And it hurt a little bit, but that was cool. The thing is, as we were leaving the trip, as we were at the airport, her flight was leaving first and followed by mine. And for the strangest coincidence, her flight ended up having this unique medical emergency where her flight actually was not going to fly out till the next day. And the only flight that was leaving was the one that I was taking. And it was just like a strange coincidence. And it was probably pure coincidence, but it was coincidence nonetheless. And she ended up flying back with me to DC and then flying back to her town the very next day. But that coincidence was just very strange. It's like one of those things where the world, I'm not a huge believer in destiny or fate, but I do believe in that opportunities come and present themselves, and it's up to you as an individual to act on them. And I felt as though that was one of those opportunities. And when she got back home, I talked to her for the next few days, and I was like, hey, after the trip, I caught feelings, and this is something where I want to know where you stand, where I would actually like to pursue something serious. I think I may have had a couple of those conversations in the past, which didn't go well, but for whatever reason, after having that conversation, she was open to it, and she actually had stopped rejecting my comments whenever I made, flirtatious comments. She would actually accept them. Granted, she never reciprocated, She just accepted them. But we talked about what it might be like to actually try something serious, playing it out, considering that we're long distance, and seeing what that might look like. So it felt good. I felt like it was going somewhere. And after that trip, we ended up pretty much talking every day. And as time went on, I became more and more invested in her. But at the same time, as I was showing and expressing my emotions or affection, she wasn't very reciprocal of those feelings. She would acknowledge them perhaps, but not reciprocate them necessarily. And I think that started to give me a lot of mixed signals, to the point where I gradually became very insecure. And I think it definitely got the best of me, to the point where I was doing things that I don't normally do, and the things that I used to do don't interest me as much anymore. And it was a very difficult month, let's just put it that way, of constant push and pull, where I just continually got invested and getting mixed signals. So at that point, thoughts on my mind was pretty much, should I give up at this point? And I think most people would say, you should have given up a long time ago. The thing is, I'm the type of person that doesn't believe in regret. I would feel like I feel like I would regret it if I didn't go all in. And I had these outrageous thoughts at the time, which would scare anyone if you were just talking. I was thinking about things like, if I'm really going to go all in, if I'm really going to see if there's something there, if I really want to try, then I should do everything I can to try. So things like moving to the city to see if there's something there. Like that itself is crazy. I would never have thought I would even think that. But dropping the opportunities I've created for myself here in the city, in DC, just to do that, or even dropping some of my other projects and side hustles just to chase this girl, was so crazy to me. But the thing is, like, there was always something there, or something that told me that I should keep going. For example, there was this inside joke that I've always had with my friends. My friends, and those of you who probably watch some of my videos, know that I'm this crazy workaholic, and all I focus on is work, work, work. That's all I care about. And I close out all my relationships, family, and friends. And the inside joke I have with some of my friends sometimes is that the moment I find someone, the right one, I will drop everything. And this girl is the first girl that has ever made me do that, or even think that idea. I felt like I was in the process of doing that, where I was willing to give up a lot of the things that I was doing at the time, just to go out and see if this might be something that was viable in a relationship. And so between the coincidences, the one I mentioned at first, there were many different coincidences that happened. And again, they were probably just pure coincidences. But between the coincidences, between our interactions that we've had, between the inside joke and all of this, I felt like it was worth a shot. And I felt as though I needed to try. And I think it was because of these reasons that I ultimately scared her away. The thing is, the type of person that I am is that I don't ever want to live a life of regret. And I don't ever want to be in the position where it's like, damn, I really regret not trying with this girl. What if she was the one? And so here I am, and I continued pursuing despite my better judgment. And of course, we know how that went, right? But in the end, there's always positivity that can be extracted from these kind of experiences, right? Where after the whole incident 2 weeks ago, I was in complete shambles. I was not in a good state. But during that time, I had an immense and profound appreciation for what it means to be a friend. I told a couple individuals that I was close to that, hey, the girl I was talking to just kind of ended things, which is kind of strange to say because we were not even official. We were talking and there was no breakup, but it felt like a breakup to me because I was not in a good state. Everything, all the emotions I felt and all the things that I went through definitely made it feel like a breakup. But in doing so and in going through that and my friends seeing me how I was blown away by the amount of support that I received from them. So many of them called me, checked up on me every day, did so many things that made me feel fulfilled. And that was, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt very good to know that there were people out there that cared. And so it just, again, reinforced the things that I talk about in my videos all the time, how important it is to invest time in your friends and family and your relationships, because those are the things that are most valuable in life. But not only that, the experiences that I had with her made me reprioritize where some of my time and energy should be spent as well. And it's not something novel necessarily. You look back to some of my videos back in 2018 and 2019 where I'm just not finding as much fulfillment in some of the things that I did, or I'm trying to find purpose and meaning in life. And it was always lacking. There was always some apathy that was there and I didn't know where it came from. And so I was always chasing that. But the thing is, the experiences with her helped give a different perspective as well, where she was a very carefree person. She valued her happiness a lot. She wanted to live a good life. And some of that definitely rubbed off on me, where sometimes I question, why am I not trying to enjoy life as well? A lot of the enjoyment that I have definitely comes from the work that I do. And I like that. But I think a lot of the stuff that's lacking also is the personal happiness, not just your professional side, but your personal side. And I think the experiences that I've had with her is helping me prioritize my personal happiness. And I think that's what I'm going to be doing over the next bit of time and being a bit more selfish. I used to spend my times, my weekends, my time and energy responding to comments, responding to messages, and a lot of giving. And it's not that I don't enjoy giving. And some of you guys have probably seen me being less active in certain things, but it just becomes very draining. And when you're giving all the time, I'm only one person. I'm not anyone special. I'm just some kid that's making videos on YouTube. And I am, again, just one person. And so when I spend so much of my time and energy doing so and just giving, I become very burned out and drained. So that is why you don't see me as often either making videos, involved in professional work, is because I'm trying to take some time and prioritizing my personal happiness and my personal wellness. With that said, it's been 2 weeks. How am I doing now? Better. Am I still in kind of a rut? Yes. It kind of sucks, after my last couple conversations with her, where she definitely confirmed that there is no hope. That's it. It is done. Deep down inside of me, there is a small glimmer of hope. Do I wish it was there? No, I absolutely do not. But I can't control the way I feel, I have strong feelings for her, and deep down there's still that bit of hope. I am hoping, and I mean, yeah, I'm definitely hoping with time that that hope will go away and eventually I'll get over this. But for the time being, um, that bit of hope is still there. I'm trying to take my mind off of it the best I can, work on different side projects, work on different hobbies, and just invest in my relationships that I currently have. So that's what I'm doing. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been going through. If you listen to this whole thing, shout out to you. But yeah, heartbreak sucks, man. I'll see you guys in the next one.